Welcome to the Marshall Pruett Podcast, brought to you by Cooper Tires and also our friends at the Justice Brothers, makers of fine additives, cleaners, and lubricants for the automotive, heavy equipment, agricultural, and industrial worlds. This episode, we go back in time to 1993 with our friend PJ Jones. PJ happens to own 26 years now outright lap record set during IMSA's qualifying session for the 1993 GTP race, the overall opening event for IMSA at Daytona International Speedway. That lap record now definitely in threat of being broken, and we saw that at the very recent Roar Before the 24, getting ready for the 2019 edition of the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Mazda dipped below that with their RT24Ps, got below PJ's outright lap record of a 133.875, nearly a half second lowered by Oliver Jarvis from the Mazda Team Yost effort. Granted, that was unofficial. Still haven't broken it, but knowing that it is in jeopardy, our man PJ, son of all-time great Parnelli Jones, Indy 500 winner, in that iconic, another all-time great All-American Racers Eagle Mark III powered by Toyota, wanted to talk about that fine moment, that fine lap where he did set this record that we have just marveled at for more than a quarter century. Track was a little bit different, especially around the bus stop back then, so asked PJ to tell us a little bit about that, but really this is just going back in time to celebrate the lap that he turned and also speak a little bit about the possibility of it changing hands. Would he want that to be something that Mazda or Cadillac or Acura or Nissan might take away? Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you here, take a listen and find out, but if you know PJ, someone who you definitely want next to you in a brawl, you can assume he's not exactly ready for this to be taken away. So thought it would just be fun to go back to a golden time. Honestly, the final year of IMSA's true awesomeness before it returned in 2014, this 1993 season where the Eagle Mark IIIs just dominated and won everything possible, set new standards. So thanks again to PJ for taking some time here. Hope that you enjoy this little winding back of the clock, knowing that it's very possible that we could have new owners of the outright prototype lap record at Daytona International Speedway. So let's get going with our man, Mr. Jones, all courtesy of the Justice Brothers and Cooper Tires. Brother PJ, I know you have been keeping your eyes on some of the activities lately at Daytona as IMSA gets ready for its 50th anniversary season. Your name came up an awful lot at the Roar Before the 24, along with our beloved All-American Racers team, the Big Eagle, Dan Gurney. This lap record you set in qualifying, we did see the Mazda Team Yost guys dip below it unofficially. So I know you've been watching that from afar. Maybe we'll get into that a little more in depth in a minute, but at least up front, how does that sound? How does that feel? Did you ever think that lap record of yours might be in jeopardy?
Well, you set a track record, and you know that with our evolution in motorsports, and that someday somebody's going to break it. I personally never thought it would hold up this long. Obviously there was rule changes, a little bit of a track change, but I mean, so honored and able to set that track record, and for it to be, still standing. I pray for rain so I can at least have it for another year.
I'm not the only one then. I've been secretly praying for rain, and I know I shouldn't. That's bad, but
Yeah, well, I mean, and it's just not all about me. More about Gurney, and more of a tribute to Dan, and to see if we can get it, hold it, another year or so, and everybody at All American Racers, Toyota, and with obviously Dan's passing, I think it'd be great to have another year. But hey, to hold this long, was it 25 years or so? I mean, pretty amazing.
Well, we're going to get into the Big Eagle and the 1-year anniversary of his passing in a moment, but let's start with one of the things that you can fill us in on. And I know that we have a lot of newer IMSA fans who might not know the differences, but that 1993 circuit that you set your track record with, it's still the same track, but things like the bus stop, there's a little bit of a difference there. Maybe let's start, PJ, with just sharing some of the physical differences between today's track and that track, because it's not exactly 100% identical.
No, not 100%. I think, down in Turn 1 is pretty similar. I haven't been around there in quite a few years since I drove for, it's been a while, actually. I couldn't even tell you the last time I've been around there. But I think the infield's pretty similar. I think really, the major change would be in the bus stop. I know there's a change. I don't know exactly how it affects the lap time. But I just can tell you the year, when we set that record and during that race, the bus stop was just one of my favorite segments. Especially in that Eagle Mark III. We just drove down in there so deep and, almost to the one marker. And that's pretty much where we were everywhere. The closing rate from the slower traffic, we're running 200 miles an hour. They're backing off at the 3 marker. So from 150 and we're running 200, we're going almost to the 1 marker. And we just powered through the bus stop. The car had so much downforce and was so nimble and just had big sideboards on it to where, we could kind of get the car out in a little bit of a yaw, and it would just hunker right through there.
And that's the next thing I wanted to talk about, PJ, because this is, unfortunately, we live in an era now which is great. Everything's in a GoPro HD 4K. There's not a single lap in motor racing turn today where there aren't 17 camera angles. Your pole lap, unfortunately, isn't something that, Lord, I don't know if I've ever seen it, but can you walk us through what you remember about that lap in this amazing 2.1-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder motor, Drino Miller putting that bullet together, and then this Mark III, again, I've said it and we'll keep saying it, the greatest prototype ever made, but can you walk us through what you remember from parts of that lap, because it is a lap of the gods, brother?
Well, every time we went to qualifying in that car that year, I would run practice, and I would run, as hard as I could, and Fangio was my teammate. He was in his car, and he was, a heck of a competitor. So I knew that in order to sit on the pole, I was going to have to beat him and Brabham and Robinson and the rest of the guys that were out there. We had great cars, don't get me wrong, and we were making progress to where our cars were better than the Nissans and the Mazdas and the other cars. But, they kept restricting us and slowing us down. So we really had to maximize our cornering and our braking and all that in order to set these records. In 93, we were pretty much wide open, and we pretty much had everything, 142 inches of boost. We had no restrictor at that point. And so when I would leave practice, I'd think, man, that was a pretty good lap. We usually pretty much close to the top of the board. And so I would kind of just think to myself, okay, what can I do to just get a little bit more? And it was like, okay, so I lifted here, going into 1. Okay, so I am going to go in a little bit deeper, and I'm going to get back in the throttle a little bit more. And then, you would just go through every corner and analyze what you could do. And one of the places I if I had to look back is you make up a lot of time at places like the bus stop. Say, okay, well, I carried this much sprint speed through there in practice. I think I can go deeper. I think I can get back on the throttle sooner.
There's a little bit of bravery. You can bravery up a little bit there if you had to.
You're just like, that car was you drove it with bravery and muscle, because, we didn't have power steering. And and I can tell you a story how I got power. When the program ended, we were developing power steering, and basically that was because they put an in-car camera in it, and I had the car totally sideways, and I would let go of the steering wheel. And they came back, engineering came to me and goes, "Oh, you're 150 miles an hour in the middle of the corner sideways, and you're let go of the steering wheel." I go, "Yeah, I'm not fast enough to catch that thing." So I would let go, and the thing would just kind of go back and forth. I'd grab it again and go, and I kind of got used to it to where I didn't even talk about it. It was not even that big a deal to me at that point. But, and that's what happens is I just had that feel in the car. I could just drive it a little bit harder, and you just suck it up. You almost hold your breath. Like when I was through the chicane, I'm sure, or the bus stop, I'm sure for that 10-second period, I did not breathe because I was just hoping everything went through, and I hit my marks and my downshift and my braking point, and I got back in the gas, and the thing didn't step too far out on me.
Oh, that is absolutely brutal. So, speed as well. I mean, if we think about what the Mark III could do, it had great power, but I don't know if anyone ever accused it of it being the most powerful GTP car. It sure made downforce, clean downforce. That thing, its road holding was just ridiculous. What do you recall, PJ, from that lap in any of your fast laps there in 93, from the standpoint of a lot of time spent at full throttle? You know, you might be going around banking, but you're effectively just pointed straight until you get to a corner, but spend a lot of time just flat-out acceleration. You've got a couple opportunities to really test yourself in some corners or entry to some corners. What do you recall from the car's just capability in balancing both of those items?
Well, I mean, the sheer with carbon brakes, that, 18-inch wide tire, 10,000 pounds of downforce at 200 miles an hour. We were only running about 200 miles an hour down the straightaway. And yeah, in today's numbers, that was probably pretty good. They probably they're not running 200 miles an hour down the straightaway. But if you went to the years before us, they were running 230, 240, 210. You get the Porsches, that were out there, and you get into the 80s, and they were moving down the straightaway, and but we had all this downforce, and it helps the braking so much. And then you put carbon brakes on it, and it's like it took me a while to figure out how to trust the carbon brakes, because you get on the brake and nothing happens, and then until you go about, 100 feet or so, then all of a sudden it's like a parachute. So that's really where, coming from 92 to 93 is where I really gained my speed personally, is just trusting the brakes and learning how to use them. And, when you brake and it's almost 4 Gs, I'm just going to tell you, my dad watched me at Phoenix International on the road course there, and he was just walking in, and he didn't really, he wasn't paying attention or anything. He just walked in, and he saw me coming down the straightaway into turn 1 there and pulling off the oval and into the road course at Phoenix. And he goes, "Oh, my God, the throttle just stuck." And no, the throttle did. We just drive them in that far. And they were just incredible machines. I don't think anybody at All American Racers really knew how good those cars were going to be. I mean, I knew at some point they knew they had something really good, but you design John Ford, you design a car, you got Hero, doing all the aerodynamics, and, you're hoping that you have this gem. But man, I mean, everything just hit. I mean, the motor was Drino. I mean, we got rid of all the turbo lag that we had in 92. They changed a wing, which we didn't run at Daytona because it was too much downforce, but we ran everywhere else in this dual plane rear wing, and it just pumped the tunnel and gave us more downforce. And I mean, just everything came alive with that car, and you could drive it. You could drive it harder. And when I look back at that car, the real lap that I remember is when I set the record at Laguna Seca. Yeah. And beating the IndyCar record, because I went through turn 4 and I went through no brakes getting in. I kind of just rolled. I mean, I want to tell you I'm flat out, but I know it wasn't flat out. I mean, I just came out of the throttle maybe, 3/4 of the way, and I hammered it back down, and I had never done that before. And the thing just stuck. And I'm like, oh, I got to turn 5. Let's see, 1, 2. Yeah, I got to turn 5. And you're kind of uphill a left-hander, and you can barely turn the steering wheel. And then you get down, come to the corkscrew. Okay, you get down through there, and then you go to the tunnel turn there where the bridge was. I know it's not there anymore. And you physically can't turn the steering wheel. I could barely make it to the apex because the steering wheel was so clamped to the ground. And but that car was like that, and you just grunted up. And I mean, that's I'm bigger than Fangio was, and I was stronger, and I could put a little more caster in it. I could get the car to turn a little bit better, and that's was one of the reasons I was able to out-qualify him a little bit more in 93.
Well, I was going to say, one of the things Robin Miller and I always mention is when we're picking our top 5 drivers, we'd never want to fight. Your old man's atop the list. He could be 1,000 years old. We'd still give him our wallets and then run away. But you're right there behind him. So I'm just saying, from a physical standpoint.
I'm not sure that's a good stat.
Well, neither am I. I'm not saying it is either. I'm just saying in terms of having the strength, you have the physique of someone who could, be a brawler if need be. So that steering wheel is beating you up.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about the Big Eagle, PJ. Obviously, losing him a year ago. Boy, not only a huge blow to all of us. I think some of us thought he'd always be here. We'd never lose him. But I guess he just comes to mind even more, knowing that this record with the amazing AAR team, everything here going into IMSA's 50th anniversary. Again, I'm with you. I want it to rain. I want this record to stand. But regardless, we still have to not only appreciate what you guys achieved 26 years ago, but also realize that the Big Eagle, he's not with us, but boy, we're still appreciating what he and the team helped bring to life in IMSA.
Yeah, I owe him a lot personally. He gave me my really first, paid factory job and gave me some of the highlights of my career. And, pairing me up with Fangio, I couldn't have been in a better place. And, being 23 years old, 22 years old, and being able to, I always joked that here I was 22 or so, and they're handing a 22-year-old a $1 million race car and say, hey, go see how fast you can go. And, that's a little bit more common these days, but back then it wasn't very common. And, he gave me a lot, and All American Racers was a great team to drive for. I really, Kathy Wida and, all the people there, John Ward, Jim Hamilton, all the guys there that, took care of us and made sure we had fast stuff all the time. They didn't leave anything to chance. It was, there's probably not many race car drivers in America that have experienced that level of a race team.
Yeah. No, that's for sure. Well, brother, let's close on this. So we don't know what will happen here in qualifying, right? We're going to find out.
Don't know.
Yeah, we'll find out shortly as to what does or does not happen. We did see there was a potential, though, for your lap record to be in jeopardy. Maybe, and I know you're aware that the Mazda team that did get below it unofficially, at least speaking about it afterwards at the Roar Before the 24, incredibly gracious and complimentary to you and Dan about this record and how much it means. If Mazda or Cadillac or who knows, Acura, one of the other big prototype teams, if they do happen to lower the record, are you going to pour yourself a stiff drink or do something to celebrate you and your team and the Big Eagle? What would come to mind if this record changes hands 26 years later?
Well, it'll be, it's sad a little bit, for Gurney and All American Racers and me personally, but, hey, records are made to be broken, and we all race, and these guys have obviously working very hard. They have less horsepower. They have less, the rules are completely different, so they're doing it a lot more efficiently, and, like I said, they're made to be broken, and that just tells you what kind of team Mazda or whoever breaks it has, and maybe their record will hold up for many years, but I think it's time that we see cars go faster, and I want to see wheels spin and big horsepower, and but it'll be a heck of a lap if they break it.
You think we should try and get IMSA to agree that if someone does break your lap, they have to invite you out to drive that car, whatever it is?
Absolutely.
Or your kids, man. Hey, they're the ones.
I got kids.
Yeah.
I got one. Jagger Jones going to K&N this year, and I got Jace Jones going to late models. So
they're the future. They're gonna be the ones helping to take care of you, and you're old in the rocking chairs. So maybe we need to get them groomed up. Well, brother, you know how much we appreciate you, and thank you for always taking time to help kind of bring the past that you lived and I lived, and some of us are so happy to have been there for. Thanks for helping to bring that forward for those who maybe weren't fortunate enough to be there.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm sure my phone will be ringing here in the next couple of weeks when this all goes down. And you know, like I said, I'll be watching with a lot of interest. I've always loved sports cars, and you know, obviously I got a lot of opportunity driving there in IMSA, and so we'll watch these big factories go at it and try to beat our record.
And that was our pal PJ Jones. I love him. And if you don't know PJ, or if you haven't seen photos of him, wasn't trying to overplay things a bit, but yeah, he's just truly someone that possesses immense strength. He is certainly built with a frame that would and should have the leverage to turn anything at any point in time. So when he's talking about a car that pushed him to his own limits, maybe beyond, just to get on top of that steering wheel and extract all the performance possible, once more, and yet again, for the umpteenth time, we come back to celebrate this just groundbreaking All-American Racers Eagle Mark III, the great men who designed it, who did the aerodynamics, everything about it. So, and I'm impartial, right? I'm just meant to be someone chronicling history as a motor racing reporter. But yeah, as I mentioned here, and I'll tip my hand a little bit, certainly wouldn't mind if this record hung around for at least another year, if not more, just in honor of the late and great Big Eagle, Dan Gurney. All right, I'm Marshall Pruett. This is a Marshall Pruett Podcast presented to you by Cooper Tires and the Justice Brothers. Thank you so much for listening.